Today we're going to be refilling the Enermax Liqtech TR4 cooler. So this is a closed loop, or as some people call it, AIO liquid cooler. We took it apart for part of our review and talked about how it actually goes together really well. It's high quality materials, nice metal body for the pump housing, and should be pretty easy to refill. So in terms of closed loop coolers and AIOs, this is the most serviceable we've seen yet. And now it's time to actually demonstrate that. So we've got a funnel that we made. We're going to pour some liquid in, reassemble the whole thing, and see how the data looks compared to the original out-of-factory build. But before we get into that, this coverage is brought to you by iFixit.com and their ProTech Toolkit. iFixit is refreshing their ProTech Toolkit in time for the holidays. You can find a link in the description below to the ProTech Toolkit and other toolkits that iFixit sells. We find the ProTech and Essentials kits to be the most useful for DIY enthusiasts. So for what I have in front of me, we have the cooler which we previously disassembled on camera. This is a Threadripper cooler. It has a Threadripper sized cold plate that actually performed really well in our testing. And we need to reassemble everything first. So do that, and then once that's done, we'll be able to refill the liquid. It had about 200 milliliters of liquid when we measured it originally, plus or minus a couple drops that we didn't catch in the measuring cup. And I have next to me just this comes with the EK Fluid Gaming kits. So this is just, I poured it in here for film purposes, but it's just distilled water and the EK cryo fluid, whatever mixture they have. So it's mixed to the EK spec. It's not gonna be the exact same propylene glycol mixture, but it should be pretty close. Then we'll be able to see if there's a performance disparity that would be measurable from it. But really the point is, by doing this is something you could use to keep the cooler alive, because closed loop coolers tend to have permeation issues after about 5 years. So if you have a long service life in a Threadripper workstation, you might want to keep the cooler for 5 years or more. If you start seeing performance degradation, you hear pump gurgling noises or air being sucked through the loop, that means that there is permeation where the liquid is starting to seep into the tubes. And so to help solve for that, you can take it apart, as we did, drain what's in there, and then refill it to about 200 milliliters, plus or minus whatever's extra. So yeah, we put all of our excess fluid gaming stuff in these vials that we had for a B-roll prop, and we're just going to refill the thing with a funnel made out of a sort of plastic coated paper, so that hopefully shouldn't decay too much as we're pouring it. We taped it with gaff tape. And yeah, let's just get started with reassembly. So I think it's been a while since I took it apart, so I need to try and remember the exact order for reassembly, which I think the best way to do it is probably, short of watching our own videos, remember it. Probably going to be dropping that in there, but there's a gasket that needs to go in first. So we have a rubber gasket that goes around this thing here. So it's not perfectly clean, it's pretty clean though. So the gasket will go around there. Okay, so that should pretty much take care of that. Cable goes through the cable channel right there. So that's where the cable goes. And now I think we have a bunch of screws. Okay, so that should be tight enough that there's no leakage in that seal, hopefully. But that's what we got for getting the motor back in. And then this has to be pushed down. And I think over that we're gonna put the pump cap. Don't remember what way this was oriented though. Could do it either way, I guess. All right, that's pretty secure. No liquids in that chamber anyway. Next thing is the bottom. So we already put the gasket back in. On the other side, there's a gasket on this side too, which is this one. And it does have two different sizes to it. So it does actually matter how you put this back on. I think the correct orientation is this one, yes. It'll fit kind of funny the other way. So that's how it goes back on. So there's actually a little bit of rust in here or something, corrosion of some kind, which if we grab the giant Torx 20, I can show. Here's where we're gonna try and refill it too. And these giant things, these are Torx 20s. So I think that's definitely corrosion on the end of that. And you can't really, you're not gonna be able to see it, but there's corrosion down inside the chamber as well. And I think there's a little bit around here. Not positive on that last part though. But I think this comes from probably the screw they're using. It's possible that this would not be an issue if we had never emptied it to begin with. If they had some kind of agent in the liquid to prevent corrosion. And, we've left this sitting for a while now with no liquid in it. So whatever was left in there, if it wasn't the right mixture, may have caused that. So we can't really blame anyone for it, but copper bolts would avoid that as well. So let's get the plate back in. This orientation probably matters as well. I would have to look at our own video to see what it was though. So I know this is right because I can see the outline of where the fatter part of the gasket was, which is over here, as opposed to the outline of the skinnier part over there. And I could reference our video, but these are gonna have to be really tight. This isn't the right size, but I just want a couple turns on it. Damn. That's a great use of a magnet. So these screws are nice because you can't over tighten them. They go until they hit a point and then stop. And that's going to make our lives a lot easier. Okay, so we're good on these. Those are secure. So we already took off one of these. I guess I'll leave the other on. And we just need to try and refill it. I think the plan, I don't think there's a better spot to do this. Certainly not in the pump block, there's not a better spot. I don't know if we started taking these embellishments off the radiator if we'd find a secret, but I mean, there's no tanks over here. The tanks are on the ends. And unless it's hidden under a sticker, no, there's no refill cap in those. We could probably take one of the barbs, the tube off the barb, but that's really not any better than doing what I'm about to do. So I think what we're going to do is I'm going to hold it up kind of higher for gravity, refill up here, and then just like tip it and hope that it refills the whole thing. And I think the best way to know when it's full, because it's probably going to take a few tries of me like closing it and moving the radiator around, best way to know when it's full is probably going to be to fill this container to the 200 milliliters that we measured previously, and then just pour that amount in plus maybe a little bit extra. So how much is 200? So I'm going to pour like 205 to 210 just to allow some room for spilling, or for what was spilled on the way out previously. So that's probably about 220 right now. Okay, got a funnel we made. I'm just going to put some tape around that. Okay, hopefully this works. Coming out of the tube, I think, or out of the funnel. Oh, I poured too much in. Okay, so some of that went in. Okay, so first attempt, no good. It's somewhat refilled that time. It's like bleeding brakes or something. Both those are full. This side's way easier, which I think, I don't know, shouldn't have to do with flow direction because the pump's not on, but whatever. So that trick is mostly get air bubbles moving, if there are any. Basically like burping brakes, if you've ever done that for something like a bike. Same idea. Actually hear a liquid in there now, that's good. Damn. So new development is, I was resealing those to be safe each time, but you can get it to tip about this far before it starts coming out of the top, which is enough for it to start going down the tubes. So I'm able to just do that instead of recapping it, which is going to make this about 4 times faster. That's 2 screws I don't have to do every single time now. It's also going to allow me to more accurately refill the unit to the amount it's built for. So we're going to lose a little bit, like a drop where I first start tilting. And then once I can see where my limit is, how far I can go, like right there, I see the liquid coming out, we just stop tilting it and let it drain straight down into the tubes. The tubes need to be vertical. Nice. This is actually going to work. With how much these things cost, it would be worth your time to spend, like, I mean, now that I've figured out how to do it, it should only take really 30 to 40 minutes to do a rebuild. Well, you got to unbuild it too, so maybe call it an hour. But I'm getting most of the tricks, so that should make it faster for you. And for how much they cost, if it takes you an hour to do it, and it saves you 130 bucks, 150 bucks, that's basically $130 an hour. Not too bad. Okay, so we turned the pump on once it got pretty much full, so that the pump's lubricated enough it won't hurt itself. And now we're just topping off the last couple drops of fluid. Turning the pump on helped a lot. You don't want to do that unless you know it's not going to burn out. But once you have enough liquid in there to start with, it does make it a lot easier to pour more quickly. At this point, I'm just trying to figure out how many more drops of fluid it needs. It's getting pretty close. You can even see the liquid entering through this tube, like down the hole. So I'm not really going to be able to show that, but I can see it coming in through there now. The pump's making some noise, a little unhappy, but we should be able to fix that in a second. Yeah. Okay, that's a lot better. So the pump is quieting down a bit now, losing some fluid because I have the radiator above it, obviously. It's mostly there. I think it needs a couple more drops of liquid, but it is mostly okay at this point. It's only unhappy when it's fighting gravity with the tubes, so that means it just needs to be topped off. Probably another 10 or 20 milliliters, so I will do that off camera, but as far as this goes, I think we're pretty much done. So, getting there. So yeah, it takes a little bit, but if you spent a lot of money for the cooler, which you probably did, the 360's $150. So if you spend a lot of money for the cooler, it might be worth doing. To make this easier, a larger hole for one, a hole in the radiator tanks would be ideal. Enermax, if you're listening and if you actually want this to be a feature or a selling point of the cooler, then stick an access valve in the radiator tank. I don't think it would have been better for us to go through the tube. I think going the way we did was probably one of the easier ways. There might be another something hidden away somewhere, but that's the best I got. So yeah, it's refillable. Now we just need to test it and see how it actually performs. So we'll do that separately and keep an eye out for that. Hopefully it should be about the same performance, worst case, or maybe slightly better depending on if this coolant I filled it with is better or worse than what it came with. So that's all for this one. Subscribe for more. As always, you can go to patreon.com/gamersnexus to help us out directly, or go to store.gamersnexus.net to pick up a shirt like this one. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all next time.